get it.
I was told, there was a couple of times where I'm like, you really can't go. You can't leave me. And you can't leave your family. Here you are replacing your family with Robin and her kids.
I think there's one huge lesson that we can learn from watching season 1, episode 2 of Sister Wives, and that is always listen to your instincts. You have these feelings, you have these apprehensions, you have these moments of pause for a reason. And, in looking at it from the retrospective view of where we see the Brown family and where they are now, and how Cody has essentially replaced his wives and replaced his kids with Robin and her children, it's very clear that Christine was onto something, that her feeling was actually genuine and her feeling had validity. And I know that when she presented this whole idea that we're being replaced and Cody is going after this woman and he's going to use her to replace us, and I see this coming, I can see from the responses of Meri, Janelle, and particularly Cody that Christine's worries and everything she was concerned about were dismissed out of hand. They tried to pretend as though Christine and her issues were just all in her head and something that she's, insecure about, and it doesn't make sense. How many times have you had a friend who thought that their loved one or significant other might be cheating on them, and only to find out that when they approach that loved one that they think might be participating in infidelity or whatever the case may be, I think you're cheating on me. And then all of a sudden the lover will turn back to them and say, oh, that's just in your head. You're so insecure. I don't know why you're acting like this. You're just making stuff up out of whole cloth. Only to find out maybe a week, 2 weeks, a month later that everything that they thought was happening was actually happening. And that's what I see with Christine in this situation. Everything that she was worried about was something that she should have been worried about. And it's a lot of things that happened during in the early part of my review, and I'm only on episode 2, as I mentioned, where I wanted to go into this review and into my looking back series with a clean mind. Like, I didn't want to approach it as though Cody is evil and I'm just trying to find reasons as to why I think he's a bad person. I wanted to go in and try to see where it started and see if Cody developed into the person that we see currently on season 17, or if he was changed over time because of circumstances, influences, things of that nature. And what I'm finding is that the relationship that Cody has had with his wives, I think that there is a way that you can do polygamy. I think that polygamy can exist under certain circumstances, very limited circumstances, and is very difficult to do. And I don't recommend this for 99.9% of people, especially people who grow up here in the States. I wouldn't recommend it because there are certain benchmarks that you have to do. Like, there are certain things that I can look at and say, this isn't going to work in this particular situation. Just understanding how human beings interact with each other and understanding how other people might feel. Like, for instance, one of the big things that I noticed during the course of this episode was when Christine was talking about how she met and how Robin was introduced to her. The idea of Robin was introduced to her.
I really fell out of loop the whole thing. I hadn't met Robin at all for 3-4 weeks after Meri and Cody did. And so the whole Robin coming along was making me mad because I hadn't met her. And here Cody's going on and on and on about her. He prays about it. He gets a testimony that, she is definitely someone that he wants in the family. Meri, same thing, hook, line, and sinker. She's done. And I'm panicking because I haven't met her. I don't know what she's like. Never even seen her before. And I thought it was horrible. I totally felt like I lost my best friend.
This goes back to what I talked about previously in my Employee of the Month video, where I talked about not being respected as a partner. In this instance, when they presented Robin to Christine, they didn't respect her as a partner. They didn't come to her and say, hey, we met this young lady, Robin, and she's great and she's wonderful. Let's get the family to meet her, the other wives, the other adults, not the kids, but the other adults, the other women. You guys have to meet her so we can get your input. Cody, as the husband, I can get your input and figure out what you think about her and what your thoughts are. Because at the end of the day, a marriage, whether it's polygamous, whether it's polyamorous, whether it's monogamous, whatever you want to call it, us, we, us. There is an us in it. There is an us. There's a we. So we have to make decisions for our family. And that's the way that the relationship has to work. So if you're going to make a big decision like this, then you have to include your wives because they're part of the overall big picture, as Cody would say. Christine is the big picture. Meri is the big picture. Janelle is the big picture. And you have to have all of these wives on board in order for your marriage to Robin to work and the family to stay together. If you have any dissent from any one of these ladies, it can throw a wrench into the entire works and gum up the factory. It can destroy the machine. So it would be imperative that you bring your wives in. There's another reason as to why you would want to bring your wives in. For me, it would seem that if you have wives, your wives would be your greatest assets and for you to acquire additional wives. In other words, not just in the sense that they get to go in and do the bottom chick thing and talk to her and convince her that this is something to do, but these are the coolers. If it was an instance where I was going to go buy something of significance, whether it's a house, a car, or whatever it is, something, a high ticket item, I would want to have somebody with me who doesn't care necessarily whether I get it or I don't get it. I want to have somebody with me who's looking out for my best interest. When I go and see this car, especially a used car, and I say, oh man, look, I'm not saying the Robin's a used car. That's not what I'm saying. But if I'm going to go look at a car or a vehicle or something, I want somebody who's going to stand there and I'll get excited about it and I get excited about the price and this is the car of my dreams. I want them to be able to look at it and say, hey, did you notice the dent in this bumper? Hey, did you notice this long scratch? You go to a house, this house looks beautiful. The location is all that. It's huge. It's wonderful. It's got a pool in the back, got tennis courts, got this, got that. Oh, it's so amazing. And you say, hey, yeah, did you notice the crack in the foundation? The cooler. Somebody who can come into this with a level head. Because there was a time when Cody had talked about not long after he met Robin.
When Robin and I were new in the relationship, my heart, I was going through some real difficult times. And I'm in Christine's room sobbing.
I remember you. Yeah.
Sorry. I was sobbing. I didn't know what was wrong. I'm looking at her. I don't know what's wrong. But I'm like, my heart is breaking in a million pieces, all this. And Christine's like, well, you're lovesick. And the only cure is a marriage.
He was so wrapped up into this situation, he couldn't see straight. So if you're in a situation where you can't tell up from down, left from right, you don't know right from wrong, you're not in a position where you can make smart decisions when it comes to something like getting married and bringing in somebody who can disrupt your entire huge family. So the importance of having your partner come in and say, yeah, this is a good idea. Hey, well, I talked to her and I got some feelings about it. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. They would be the one to be able to cut through the crap. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, if Robin was, in fact, a manipulative person, and I think that there is a lot of indication that she is a very manipulative person. And so if she's a manipulative person, and we'll go from that premise, then it's not difficult for us to make the leap that she would be able to manipulate Cody in a one-on-one, and it will be very important for her to try to stay isolated and focused on the person who is most vulnerable, which would be Cody. And a wife coming in who doesn't have skin in the game, they not trying, like, your wares don't work on me, girlfriend. Like, you can walk around with all the Victoria's Secrets and everything you want to walk around in, but it's not going to work on Meri, Janelle, and Christine because they not into girls. So the thing that she would use to try to attract Cody won't work with these ladies, and they can cut through the crap. So that would be a huge benefit from my perspective when you are having a polygamous marriage, one of your greatest assets in acquiring additional wives and acquiring happy relationships would be your best friends, your partners, your wives. They would be the ones who could come in and tell you exactly what's going on and whether it will work or won't work. So he missed the bus when it came to the opportunity to get his wife's input. Let's pause for a second. Take a look at Meri's face. Not everybody thinks that this story is amusing. After all, he's home with his wives, and he's heartbroken about not being in a place with the woman he wants to be with. I'm sure it occurred to Meri that he probably doesn't cry when he's sitting over at Robin's house. Last but not least, in the season 1, episode 2 recap, from what I saw, there's an issue that I never really considered, but I think is very important. And I would say I never really considered it, or at least it wasn't in the forefront of my mind. And that issue is, I was so focused on the idea of polygamy and these women sharing their man, these wives sharing their husband, that I overlooked the fact that they're not just wives sharing their husbands, but these are mothers sharing their children. And that in and of itself can create a lot of problems. Because if you think about the dichotomy or the difference, we'll focus on the difference between Christine, Meri, and Janelle, who got married when they were younger, before they had children, and they existed together as a unit before they had kids. And then the children that they had were introduced into the family. And so everything that they had was built up from the ground up. So all their relationships and how they functioned with each other, how their kids interacted with the other mothers was already established. In Robin's case, she's coming into the marriage with 3 children already that she has from a previous marriage. And she has been, according to her, been doing these kids by herself for a short period of time between her divorce and to when she met Cody. But she's been doing these kids by herself. And at no point, even when she was married, has she ever had to share her children. And I think that that's a big deal, especially when you take into account that many of the things that we later discover that Robin does is actually for her children. And she cites it as, I'm doing this for my children. I wanted to find a relationship and a man and a family for my kids. I wanted to be able to provide for my kids. So the forefront of her mind is her children. And so because the forefront of her mind is her children, she sees herself as the primary alpha mama bear. She sees herself as the only mom and to these children because these are her kids. These aren't our kids. These are my kids. And when you have that dynamic coming into a family that is already functioning, where everybody's kids is everybody's mom and everybody's mom is the mom to all the kids, and then you're trying to add additional kids into that, especially if you have any hesitance on behalf of the mother and the way that she wants her kids to present themselves to these other women, it can create problems. And it really hit me because in the car when they were cheering about the which mom is coming, and they were kind of singing that song like kids do to, drive you crazy. They find one thing and just keep hitting you with it and it'll drive you nuts. But they were doing that thing. But then it occurred to me, she's never been in a situation where her kids called somebody else mom or mommy. And that can create issues. Now, of course, she's not going to flip out because she wants to be accepted by the family. She wants to be accepted by the other mothers. But there might have been, I can very well see there being a conversation where she pulls the kids aside and say, just so we're clear, I'm your mother. These other women, they're your second moms or bonus moms or whatever. But when rubber meets the road, I'm your mother. And that is it. I can see that conversation happening. And this is why it's so important for there to be communication and, more importantly, openness between everybody and all parties involved, especially as you're adding multiple people into a marriage or a relationship. The more people you add into a relationship, the more communication, more transparency has to be present. The important key factors for me taking away from this episode is one, always listen to your instincts. You have instincts for a reason. You are gifted with them, and it's something that you have to hone. And at the end of the day, you have to learn to trust yourself. You have to learn to believe yourself first. If you are telling you that there is a problem, listen to you before you listen to anybody else, because there is something in you that's telling you that there's a problem, and you have to address what that thing is so that you feel better about the situation, because something is warning you and telling you that there might be an issue. And as we've seen with Christine, had she listened to her instincts, and more importantly, had the other family members and the other partners listen to her instincts, they might not be in the situation that they are in today. Probably would be, but they would have had a better chance of avoiding the problem. The second thing, make sure that you trust yourself as a partner in your relationship. You want to be a full partner in a relationship that involves you, because the relationships can steer your life, they can affect your life, and they can affect your outcomes. They can change your situation. And because it is your situation, it's your life, and it's your heart, and it's your emotions, you have every right to participate fully in every decision that is made in your relationship, especially those decisions that will affect you and your relationship. That's my take. I'm James. This has been my take on reality, and I'm out. 'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die.